Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spotlight on Unicorns. Today, we're going to be talking to somebody very dear to my heart, is my mother-in-law, Desiree Coelho. And we're going to be talking about her history and her experience working throughout her lifetime. She's going to be 90 years old next year. And so she's got a lot of different jobs over the years. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so I'm going to go ahead and open with my first question, which was, why did you choose to, you had various, let's just start with that. How about all the different jobs that you had over your lifetime?
Well, you start out when you're 12 or 13 babysitting, and I had a police officer that lived up the street from me.
Oh, wow.
So I got to babysit the police officer's children.
Mm-hmm.
And that was almost always easy because I didn't come over till they were in bed.
Nice.
And so it was, he went, one night he was dressing himself up so that he wouldn't look like a police officer because he was a plainclothes officer.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out and asked my opinion if I would guess that he was a police officer. He had just, old faded jeans and that kind of thing, and wanted to be able to pass as someone that wasn't in the law.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun, interesting and nice having a police officer up the street.
And then what other jobs have you had over time?
Let's see. After that, it was like carhop was one of the first jobs where I really got paid regular wages and made fabulous tips.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a company called Lucky Drive-In that was on the popular radio stations, and they advertised to come to the Lucky Drive-In. And this always sounds so conceited, but their logo was we have the most beautiful girls in the world. We didn't do roller skates, but we did do short satin skirts and little boleros and like a costume.
Okay, got it.
And I think I made $27 a week, and I took home probably $40 a night.
Oh, wow.
Which was really big money in tips in those days.
Yeah.
So the salary was nothing, but the tips were wonderful.
Yeah.
And I remember just giving my brother money to spend like it was water, because I just had it laying on my dresser and jars with coins in it.
Nice.
It was like unbelievable for a 17-year-old. That's how old I was.
So you were still in high school, or this is after?
I was in high school. So
okay.
This was in the summertime. And then I did a few, weekends and stuff. But once school started, I pretty much didn't have a job then.
Got it.
And my first jobs as out of high school, I'm trying to think what I did first. I always did retail, nice department stores, and selling retail. And one of the jobs that I had was at Macy's as what they call a flyer, because every day, pretty much in a large department store, someone doesn't show up. And so you have to be comfortable with that. Most of us, when we start a job, it takes a few days to get used to the department and the stock and whatnot. And they called me down to the office, and they asked if I wanted to try flying. And so every day I would just report to the manager, and she would say, "You're going to tires today, or you're going to find China, or you're going to babies."
Yeah.
And you would just have to fly by the seat of your pants, like they say.
Yeah.
And just try to get a quick idea of what the stock was, and cover for their breaks for the people that work there on a regular basis. And I like that because I never got bored. And I remember the job at Macy's was I had to stop working there because they realized that I was already 6 months pregnant. My husband and I were expecting our first child, and I was just dressing to hide it, and I didn't gain very much weight. And finally, one of the managers noticed that and asked if I was, and in those days, their insurance wouldn't allow you to work past 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So those were different times. Now you can work up to the last minute practically, I think. Yeah.
So they actually did not let pregnant women work?
No. And she said, "Honey," I said, "Well, how long do I have before I have to quit?" She said, "Right now. You're going with me downstairs to the,"
oh, wow.
And so I had to quit, go home right then, because they said if anything happened to me, I could claim that it was on, I got hurt at Macy's, or something was wrong with my child because of some chemical that was in the clothing or whatever. But I always enjoyed that. And sometimes I work in the men's department, and I did get assigned to tires one day, and I did terrible. There was a place where your car would drive through, and some men were coming in to get tires.
Yeah.
And those days it wouldn't have been women.
Yeah.
And they would say, you advertise such and such a tire for $39.99. And I was supposed to somehow get that tire on to that person. And I just stalled because it was only a 45-minute lunch, and I had 2 or 3 people come along asking for tires. And I remember looking at all those
on the wall.
Shelves on the wall.
They expected you to take a tire down?
I don't know what, I think they just wanted me to cover for lunch. So the guy got back to make sure nobody came in and stole any tires or anything. And I don't know that they didn't take into consideration that people would run in on their lunchtime
to get their tires.
To get a tire.
Yeah.
So I was really
that's crazy.
stuck, and I had to say, the regular person that works here will be back in 15 minutes or whatever. So, but it was a fun thing being a flyer. And I worked as a dance instructor, and I did dance before that because I had always been a dancer since I was a little girl, and had done stage work, just small town stuff, nothing really big and important. But there are some pictures of me dancing at the California Theater and various places. The St. Clair Hotel too.
Yes, we are familiar with the St. Clair.
That. Only time I ever had a semblance of my name in lights. But anyway, except when the movie Desiree came out, and that was on the California Theater marquee.
Yeah, huge.
All my friends were laughing about that because they didn't know any other Desirees in those days.
Yeah.
But yes, I taught ballroom, and that was really a lot of fun. And it was an opportunity to get thousands of dollars worth of dance lessons, because they train you for 6 weeks before you start teaching. And that's just bronze. And in order to keep your job there at that time at Arthur Murray's, you had to continue to learn higher, better, more infinite steps and so forth, more difficult. So then you would pass your silver.
Oh, wow.
And you had to pass your silver to stay working there within a certain length of time. Bronze was not, gold wasn't required, but they encouraged it. So I learned some gold dances, but I never did learn all of the 7 different dances in gold, only in bronze and silver. And I got a lot of my friends' jobs there too, so it was fun. I worked with
people that you liked.
I knew, and they were always interesting people that had some connection to the theater or dancing or the arts in one way or another, which was always kind of something that our family was drawn to.
Didn't they also too, I think at one point you mentioned that they flew you guys someplace to do some shows?
Well, for one thing, we always had a TV show once a year, and that was in Oakland at I wish I could think of the name of the giant ballroom there. It was very well known, and it's just not coming to me right now, but everybody knew about this huge ballroom in Oakland, and they had a TV show there, and they had the Arthur Murray dancers from many different cities in the Bay Area and near Los Angeles and that way. And they flew us to Los Angeles for conventions, and also always for some reason they were very, because it was a sales job, and they expected you to sell lessons and sell lifetime
memberships, right?
Memberships, thank you for that. And there were other smaller memberships, and if you were a member, then you were entitled to all these different little perks. Always once a month a dinner at a fine restaurant, and then once a year we had Destination Unknown, and all the students would come and get on a bus, and they had no idea where they were going, and we would have a dinner at Shadowbrook Lodge in Boulder Creek or
Santa Cruz
or San Francisco or Santa Cruz or like that, but nobody knew where they were going. And there was a lot of there was always a monthly party at the studio we worked at. So if you had a membership, you had you had a social life, whether you did or not. Once you were an Arthur Murray student, there was always something to. So I'm selling Arthur Murray's again. You can tell they sent me to a lot of sales meetings.
You're a good salesperson.
Yeah, they ended up whenever there was someone well known in sales, they paid for all of us to go wherever it was, and often it was in San Francisco. We would take 4 or 5 cars up there, and I remember being shocked that they charged $10 a day to park the car that we went up there in.
Yeah.
I mean, because parking was like $1, for a whole day.
Yeah.
And $10 a day, maybe even less than that. It was we couldn't believe it, but it was San Francisco, so that explained it.
Yeah,
and there'd be like 5 of our cars going up there, so at least. So we would see famous people that were in sales and have the advantage of that. And also we had sales meetings once a week that had to do with everything that made you appealing to other people, or that where people would, for an example, people that were shy, and you're expected to know everybody's name and how to associate so that you would be able to remember your students' names, because you'd have like 5 students in one day, and every day was a different 5.
Yeah.
And so they expected you to, so they taught us how to associate something with the person. And I remember them saying, you have to be a little bit careful what you pick, because if a man's name was Mr. Salmon, that you don't call him Mr. Fish.
Mr. Fish
or something like that. You have to associate it, but at the same time, be careful how you do that.
Yeah.
I always thought that was funny.
Was it majority women that were
No, there was some of the most prominent people in the valley at that time were students there. We had our city treasurer. We had the people that the cement people that put the cement in Santa Clara Valley. Pretty much they were the only ones that ever did that they asked to do public work like that. I'm trying to think of the name, but I can't recall it right now. But there was many prominent people in politics.
Oh, interesting.
And people that used Arthur Murray's. It was sort of a kind of a there was all kinds of everyday people, because they had the picture in the newspaper of the little feet and how they could teach you to dance in 3 lessons, and you could get free lesson if you came in, no charge. And that's when the salespeople got a hold of you and sold you a program, so you'd come back again. I don't think Arthur Murray's is still running now.
I think it actually is.
Is it? It's amazing. Well, we got to meet Arthur, and when we went to conventions in San Francisco and Los Angeles, they flew us there for conventions, and that way back then they had closed circuit TV for all of us to watch. And
wow, and it was kind of almost like a social club.
It was, yeah, and that's how that
got it.
I mean, that's why we ended up attracting people that the Albanese family was another big family. And the city treasurer, who, by the way, during the time I was teaching there, was arrested for fraud, for some kind of financial investment, investment that was not. The thing I observed there the most was the everyday people off the street that came in and bought lessons and stayed with the studio seemed to be more conscious of how they dressed and impressing us with what they could do and what their job was. And the big money people that bought lifetime policies, and it was just a drop in the bucket to them, and they were like thousands of dollars. They were the ones that came in their faded jeans and were casual, and you never know in a million years if they
it didn't mean as much to them
that they were millionaires or whatever, or that they were the city treasurer or whatever. So and then I'm trying to think. I was a mom for a while, and at that time I helped out at the schools and the church.
We were just talking about that today, right? Working with CC, what did they call it? CCD or
it was Catholic Education for Children. At our Most Holy Trinity Church, which was like 3 blocks from my house, which was very convenient because I never did learn to drive. And I always say I raised 4 children on buses. I knew how to grab the stroller and snap it up and climb on a bus with the two older kids and the two little ones, And so now when my children say, I can't go to work because my car broke down.
Yeah, here's the bus schedule.
Come on.
Here's the bus schedule.
You guys got raised with on a bus. And my oldest son was riding the buses like a pro. By the time he was 10 years old, he could go anywhere in Santa Clara Valley.
Yeah.
And now we say, well, you never let your children out without driving them there yourself and so forth.
Well, we were Generation X, right?
Yeah.
So we were like letting ourselves in, and now like we're
latchkey
kid.
Children,
what's going to happen to the latchkey children?
But they had so much more confidence.
We did. Yeah, it is doing stuff for yourself, because
even now as a almost 90-year-old, I was just telling Nicole that they offer to help me to do things, and I don't want the help because I have to do things for myself. And when I do, I love it and it gives me confidence. Sometimes I get kind of a little bit down and thinking I'm getting pretty old now. I guess I won't be able to get out much, and I'm not sure I can handle this. And if I have a bad little spell with my mobility or something like that, I hurt myself and can't get around, I get miss my walking and buses and whatnot. And then as I heal and I first start to venture out again, I'm a little timid and a little bit concerned. And I come home just jubilant because it was no sweat at all. And I hopped on my bus and I got where I was going and shopped. And I get a little more fatigued than I used to, and I have to quit sooner. But I'm just glad to wake up in the morning.
Well, we are too.
Yeah.
So after the Arthur Murray, I know that you did a stint at working at a law firm for a while too.
And right? That was my last job. I worked 20 years at.
Oh wow!
And but before that, I worked at a dress shop.
That's right, at the mall at Eastridge. Yeah,
at the mall.
Yeah,
and that was a fun experience, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I had a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and 2 girls. A junior high school and a high school child. And so that was a fun time. It was prom time, and it was learning how to go to the bathroom for the baby.
Yes.
And feed himself and whatnot. And then we had the junior high school girl. At one time, my husband and I used to have to divide up the teachers' conferences.
Yeah.
Because we had a child in grammar school, 2 children in grammar school, 1 in junior high and 1 in high school. And you just do it instead of 1 day at a time. It's kind of like 15 minutes at a time. That many. And you look back and you go, how did I do that? But the time passes and you do it. And I took some creative writing classes. My husband suggested it when I was home a lot and hadn't started working when the 2 children only had 2 children. And they showed you how to where to go to market what you sold. And I had no idea. Nobody does, even if they're creative in school and so forth, they don't know what to do with it. And the creative writing classes are wonderful. They tell you, buy this magazine. In the back of the magazine, you'll see who to send your material to and how to prepare it and so forth. And so I didn't write the great American novel, but I sold a poem and I sold a little story to the Weekly Reader, which was at that time, I'm not sure if schools still have that once a month, but it was a publication almost like a newspaper that went out once a month, and it was educational. And there was always one little interesting fun story or a little poem or something in there, just for the fun of it. And they bought my story.
And that story was
Benny Bunny and the Thunderstorm. And my husband always teased me because he knew that every time there was thunder and lightning, I got scared. And he said, I know who's Benny Bunny. And so that was really fun. And my daughter wasn't in school yet when I wrote it. And we were sitting on the front porch together in the summertime. And I was waiting to hear. And the mailman came, and there was a letter from Eric Ott, O-O-T. And it was accepting my story. And Valerie was always creative in her from the time she was very tiny. And she drew a picture of me with my arms up in the air and my mouth wide open, which is not unusual. But anyway, Mama's story, Mama sold her story, she titled it.
Yep.
And so that was really fun. I got paid $50.
That's a big deal.
That was a big first job after I was married.
Yeah.
And I always did the voting. I worked at the polls in my neighborhood at voting time, and I enjoyed doing that. It wasn't so dangerous at the time.
Yeah.
There's times now when they don't want you to
do
that anymore.
Yeah, it can get kind of.
But we had a really active area. We're a working class blue collar neighborhood. And people got out and voted in our neighborhood. It was almost 100%.
Wow.
We were so close to that.
Yeah.
They would be knocking on doors and saying, we could get it 100%. If you come and vote tonight, we'll drive you there. And it was really a fun thing to do. And I always was, my parents always voted, and they always believed that you can't be complaining if you don't have a say in what's going on.
Yeah.
And my mother said that her father would go to the train tracks where the trains would stop, and whoever was running for office would speak to
train
the people.
stops. Yeah.
Would make train stops.
Yeah.
And he said, you can't vote for someone unless you actually see them.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a feeling about a person, when you're listening to them. If there's some big phony that's just putting on, or if you think they really do care about people and so forth. So I came from a long line of voters, and my mom worked for the polling people always. I remember her doing that.
Yeah.
Well, and so I naturally signed up.
You're a first generation American because your father was born in Normandy, wasn't he? I thought he was
both. My mother and father were born in America.
Okay.
And her mother was born in America.
Okay, so they were first generation then.
But her dad was from Portugal.
Yeah.
And my father's dad was from France, Normandy, France.
Yeah.
And my grandfather used to talk about I was thinking it was the Second World War he was talking about, because he was so upset when I had a girlfriend who had a German last name.
I think it was probably the first.
And he was talking about the First World War,
yeah.
Where they invaded the area and opened all the spigots of the wine that they all had in the basement, and overtook the French people at the time.
Yeah, it was pretty.
And then I went to work. The last place I worked for was Campbell Warburton Law Offices, and that was a lovely place to work, because unlike most law offices, they were like a family-oriented business.
Yeah.
And even their prices, one of the original Mr. Campbell's father started it with a different gentleman, and then Mr. Warburton, who was a philanthropist, and he has a hall named after him at San Jose State University, and all kinds of clubs and things that where he was the sponsor. And he was one of at one time we had 20 attorneys working there, and we dwindled down to about 7 at the last, and there still are, I think, about 6 that work there, but almost all the old original ones have passed away. One just did pass away recently, in fact. And that was an interesting job, because you learned a lot about the law, even though you weren't educated. You got an education, and I was interested to see that people would come in there as some of our lawyers were did wills and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think of the name of that department. We did insurance defense.
Oh, okay.
And we also did the personal law.
Personal injury.
Well, that was personal injury.
Yeah.
But we represented the insurance companies.
Oh, okay.
And then also we had a lot of 2 lawyers, including Mr. Warburton and Mr. Campbell, that did the wills and
estates and
and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the one lesson I learned was that families would come in and be so congenial and wonderful and warm with one another. And after the elderly person would pass away, I would be notified at my desk that when the Spencers came in, I was to divide put the Sowen Spencers in one room and the other side of the family in the conference room or something, because they were fighting with one another. This love, and I would just be amazed, because I say, that nice family that we're all hugging and kissing each other, and they say, oh yeah. And the very first week I went to work for them, these great big tall men came into regarding the death of a parent, and they got into a fist fight right alongside of my desk.
Oh my God.
And I thought, I never expected, somehow I felt like it was kind of uppity in a law office, you know.
You behave yourself.
And yes, people were dignified and so forth. Which wasn't easy for me, because I had to pretend that I called me from Central Casting and said, go in and pretend you're a legal receptionist, because I'm a antsy, a high energy person. But I also love drama, so it was
all unfolding before
you.
You
know, it was always, you know, when you hit the floor, you're a legal receptionist instead of a dancer or a actress or whatever I thought I wanted to be. I grew up in the
that was actually the next question I was going to ask you, was what did you think you were going to be when you were
I was going to be a movie star, but mostly I was going to dance. That's all I ever wanted, was just dancing was in my head from the time I was a small child. They gave me piano lessons, which I didn't want to have. And it was during the war when they were blackouts. And you had black curtains on your windows. And my dad was a street warden, and he would wear a arm badge and walk up and down the street and make sure there was no lights showing. And my piano teacher was scared to death that we were going to get bombed, because they said they could see a cigarette from an airplane when everything is black like that. So that's why they had wardens to make sure no one put on a flashlight, no one smoked a cigarette outside of their own home, and that everybody's windows were black. And my teacher was very timid little man who was terrified. And I used to just pray that we'd have a blackout,
so you didn't have to go
during the piano lesson, because he would get so scared. And Raymond and I, my brother and I, would sit on the floor, and we'd have to sit and wait. You couldn't leave or be traveling. So he'd have to sit there with us, and I could squiggle down off the piano bench and go play with my brother in our room or something, or sit on the floor and listen to the radio or something.
Oh, he came to the house to give lessons?
Yes, he did. He gave us our piano lessons. And so I'd see him coming, and I think, oh, I hope we have a blackout, which was a terrible thing, because we never knew if they were real or not. Most people these days don't realize that there were sightings of Japanese
airplanes,
subs and stuff in on our Bay Area, and landings on it in different places in the United States. So it was we used to, as a child, you'd hear people saying things like, if we don't win this war, we'll all be speaking German, or we'll all be speaking Japanese. They will overtake our country. So as a little kid, you're picturing these people bossing us around and us not being able to be in our own home. Nothing as bad as the poor Japanese people had, but it was still frightening. And every single human being was helping with that war. Little kids would pick up a piece of tinfoil off the ground and keep it until they got home, and put it on the big ball of tinfoil. And then you turned that in when it got big enough. And you saved every scrap of newspaper. And all the schools had newspaper drives. And I remember one man opened his garage, and it was full to the ceiling of tied up bales of newspapers that he had saved, and the trucks would come and get them. And you couldn't wear nylons anymore, because that was for parachutes. And all kinds of things like that. That was interesting. Mama, the women all did, made things and worked in the canneries and packing houses and whatnot.
Took the jobs that the men,
right.
What is one thing that you wish you would have done differently with the jobs that you've had over the years?
Jobs?
With your careers.
Isn't that funny? It's interesting being asked that question, because I got to do what I like to do. I went to some conferences for writers and so forth, and I raised children in the meantime. And always had animals that I loved, and I just had such a fortunate life. And I know higher education is a wonderful thing, but I've never stopped reading. And my mother used to say there is such a thing as self-education. And two of my children have gone to college. Well, wait a minute, is it three? Lynn went, Belle went, Joey went to junior college type of thing, three of the four. And we always encourage education. I'm really, and I'm so glad now that my dancing didn't take me into professional dancing, because you see what kind of lives they have. They're not free everywhere they go. People are following them and taking pictures of them and interfering in their marriages don't seem to last, and they're drug addicted and that kind of thing. And I just had the most fun time as a young woman when I was first married to my first husband. A mutual friend, wife, also was a dancer, as I had been from the childhood, and she was in a dancing group that entertained in Santa Clara Valley here. And so as soon as we saw each other, we recognized one another from high school, and she knew I was a dancer too, and she said, "You've got to sign up with my group," and I did. So we got to do the kind of dancing that the Rockettes do, the pillar dancing, which was my favorite thing. And I still cry when I see the Rockettes on TV, because I want to be up there, and they're not too interested in 90-year-old women with varicose veins. But
well, I mean,
maybe a 90-year-old man with varicose veins.
I don't know. You can do a lot of interesting things with the AI imaging, right?
But when I was a child, I grew up with I was right in the middle of the Technicolor musicals. And every time I went to see one, I just knew I was going to end up being a musical movie star. And tap dancing and ballet I did, but I wasn't very good at it. Tap dancing, I was mediocre, but I had so much fun doing it that I got a lot of compliments, and I always got picked because
the enthusiasm,
a lot of teeth and a lot of, energy. And it looked, and I was having fun, and audience can tell that. I did some singing. My dance teacher had everybody sing to see if anybody in the group had a good enough voice to use in her shows. And so I got to do some singing too, and other side things. And we danced around Santa Clara Valley when we were between 18 and 21 or so. And that was a job. And we sometimes a nightclub would have us come and do a Hawaiian number or just a tap number that had to do with St. Patrick's Day or something like that. But no big time stuff at all. It was just fun, and we got paid peanuts.
But it was the fun to do.
Yes. At the St. Clair Hotel, I got paid a dinner.
There you go.
Yeah.
You get the calories back.
And now my job was babysitting for my grandchildren.
Yes.
And canvassing for the cancer and heart and that kind of thing. The things that you can still do, as you get older. And that's about, if I've done anything else, do you remind me?
You are missing a very important job, which is you are the matriarch of the family. That's a very important job. You're in charge of the family. So
I don't think of that as a job. It's a joy.
Oh, there you go. See, that's all how you look at it. What would you tell your younger self about your life and like all the different things that you've done?
Slow down. Because I had an unfortunate marriage, and it was a stupid, decided to get married for a stupid reason, because I got in an argument with my dad. And the boy I was dating at the time had asked me over and over again to marry him, and I was only 18. And that's what I told him. I'm too young to get married, And then when this incident happened, I just, if you still want to marry me, let's go and get married. I mean, it was just a really stupid mistake, that most of us make our worst mistakes when we're young. And you look back and say, I wish I hadn't done that. But then you learn from that too. And all along the way, sometimes there's things that everybody has do-overs that they wish they hadn't said a certain thing or done a certain thing. I don't remember turning down anything that I love my drama club at class at high school, and I got to play a 70-year-old or 80-year-old woman.
Mm-hmm.
And this interesting thing is, I see that woman in my mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I have pictures of myself with that makeup on,
Mm-hmm.
and the students at San Jose State came over and did our makeup, and they said frown
Mm-hmm.
and smile, and they drew lines wherever those.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Charlie McCarthy or the ventriloquist dummy
Yeah.
lines have taken over.
Yeah.
And I look just like Grandma Painsbury,
The character that you
the
played.
character in the hillbilly play that I did. Yes, I knew every word, and I didn't flub up one. I was so proud of myself. It was the main part. And I remember when the drama coach told us we were going to do this certain play,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately wanted to do the pretty young girl.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came, he called each of us up and said the part that he thought he would encourage us to do.
Yeah.
And when he said the 80-year-old grandmother, my heart just sunk. But I kept smiling, that stage smile that you learn when you're a tap dancer.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yes, I hope you aren't insulted," he said, "but it has the most lines and it's the most difficult part. And you're the only one in the class, I think, that can do it. Brag, brag."
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a feather in my cap, and I never forgot that he picked me for that. It was a high point of my high school that he said that to me, because I love drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't disappoint him. And I have disappointed many other people, but I didn't disappoint him. And that's about, like I said, being a parent is the most important job in my life.
That was actually one of the questions I had, is what's the most important job? So it's being a parent.
It's just amazing to see, be in charge of a little small human being's life. And Joseph and I read everything we could get our hands on
Mm-hmm.
child rearing
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And my mom did too, which was progressive for her.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody didn't do that, and lots of my friends were raised differently. And I had an aunt that was a school principal, and was very educated, had a fine education regarding raising children and teaching children. And my mom learned a lot from her too. She used to say they love opposition.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of coming back with the same behavior that the child is doing,
Mm-hmm.
To distract them to something else, or say, well, let's look at this another way, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a nice way. And my mother made a lot of mistakes, like everybody, and I vowed I would never make those mistakes, but I made other mistakes.
Different ones.
Exactly. But anyway, it was a very interesting thing. And I got to choreograph high school plays and so forth. So I was able to use my dancing put my dancing to good use. And in grammar school, one of Joey's teachers asked me to come and teach them the waltz for something that they were studying in school. I don't know what it was, but the whole class had to do a box step and
yeah
so forth. And so off and on throughout the school time, I came up with ways to, when President Kennedy was saying, "Ask not," and we were understaffed at school, and the teachers were staying after running off papers and were exhausted. I started with another lady,
Mm-hmm.
a program where I asked the mothers if they could give an hour or two a month
to help the teachers.
And everybody said, "Sure, once a month I would."
Yeah.
And so we got over 100 people showed up and signed up at the class at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a show we put on for the PTA.
Yeah.
And then we had a sign up after the show. I said this, that if they could give some time. And so we had a training class where everybody learned how to run the copier and the various machines that the teachers had to use.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a huge group that were coming once a month for each person, but there was always somebody there to do the grunt work for the teachers.
Yeah, to help them out with it. Yeah.
So that turned out well. The only thing that happened was they were doing it for nothing, like Kennedy wanted us to do.
Yeah, instead of being.
And then in a very short time, the California began paying people to be helpers at school.
Finally, right? They start getting helpers.
But the people that were doing it for nothing all became the paid people.
Oh,
and I kind of I kind of thought it just defeated the whole idea of doing something just because you're helping one another.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, most of them had jobs, but I guess a lot of them were just, I was just gonna say, just mothers.
Yeah.
Get me. That's terrible. I was a mother myself,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying they got out of the house and they enjoyed doing it, and their children were happy to see their parent at school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it was the whole idea of doing something for nothing.
Yeah.
Was foreign to people at that time,
Yeah.
practically.
Yeah.
And then once they started getting paid, they wouldn't dream of coming in and doing it for nothing.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's that balance between, you know, mothers.
Your worth.
Exactly. So
Your worth.
what's your time worth, right?
Yeah.
So, and, you know, women have traditionally, they've not had any, nobody, they have multiple studies where they figured out exactly how much it would cost to outsource everything that a mom does.
Oh, yes. I
it
remember.
Would be, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so there should be some compensation for stay-at-home moms. Yeah. Or stay-at-home dads.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that should be an actual job.
Yeah.
And it should be something that, you know, you get benefits for and all those sorts of things. So at least that's my opinion.
No, exactly. I'm torn on that whole subject, because if you volunteer, you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart and because you believe in the cause or whatever. And at the same time, as you say, I'm all for getting paid what we're worth and being respected for what we do, and not, oh, you don't have a job. Yeah. You know, that job, what is it? Being a dad or something is the hardest job I've ever loved or something.
Yeah.
Something I've got it mixed up.
No, but I think what it is that when you're volunteering your time, it's because you're not expecting compensation for it, right? But if it becomes something that is the reason why you need people volunteering is because
there was a need in
the first place. Exactly. So that shows that, okay, this is something that's valuable. We need to be able to put some money towards it.
That's making me right now rethink my thinking, because it kind of annoyed me that all of a sudden all these people that were so kind and doing such a good thing, it turned into a whole different. Oh, there was even more push me, pull you, politics involved once they started getting paid and everything. Yeah, it kind of turned into something. They were still getting the help that they needed, and probably a lot more once it became a job. But it didn't seem to have the same feeling to it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Everybody felt good about themselves because they were, and it was only once a month. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's the other thing too, is they began showing up every day. If you're showing up every day, that really have to be paid. Yeah. It goes away. So this is good that I talked about this, because I've had a different opinion about it now. Well, I mean, it's stuff, you know, that changes over time. But so this is the last question. And the name of the I don't know, this is a podcast, it's more like a video cast, but the name of the name of it is Spotlight on Unicorns. And so the question that I've got is, what makes you a unicorn? What's your special magic, do you feel? I think it's attitude. Yeah. Because my mom went through all kinds of tragedies in her life, but I always remember her being an up person and a fun person and not too judgmental of other people. She was a woman of faith, which has given me all the courage and strength to get through the hard times. That's something that I say every morning, is thank you for my long, healthy, happy life, and thank you for all the refuge and strength and hope and happy, help that I got to get through the dark times. And so I think always you can choose to be up or down. I really believe that no matter what's going on, there's terrible days just in your very everyday life, not when somebody dies or something, but you're just overwhelmed and or scared or upset, worried about your loved one or something. And you can either just stay panicked all day long and muttering to yourself, or you can take a deep breath and let it out slowly and ask God to help you and realize that things that are out of your hands, if you can't change it, get on with your day. People still need socks and underwear. You still have to wash clothing and dishes and schedule doctor's appointments and do the things you need to do. Get busy, make yourself useful, and try to make somebody else happy. And when you do, it gives you a lift.
Yeah. Yeah.
The minute I sit down and write a little get well note or a little hi to one of my nieces or nephews, or send a card to somebody, or call someone up and see how they're doing, and they just cheer up and they're happy, all of a sudden I'm feeling happy. So it's really kind of sneaky.
Yeah.
You know, if you make other people happy, it makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think it's a choice. When I worked at Arthur Murray's, that was one of the things they taught us. They said, get up and look at yourself in the morning in the mirror and smile. No, I don't care what's going on. Your favorite uncle died, whatever, smile. Do not show up at our door in a bad mood, sad or upset. People aren't paying at those days $20 an hour or $10 an hour to see some sad sack or hear about their troubles, you know. And they said it works. And that's what Gary Yabe, who was a famous speaker, said, that you talk yourself into being in a good mood and refuse to let the day. Every day is another chance to kick the past in the pants.
Oh, that's a good one.
I have that written on my overhead in my house.
That's a perfect way to end this entire interview. That's an awesome way to end it. So yeah, so thank you for sharing. And
I loved it.
The whole point of this exercise is really, I've been wanting to do this for a number of years, is to talk to all of my favorite women in my life, and be able to have like a digital record of who you are, and
especially after I kick off.
Well, no, stop saying that. It's morbid. You're not going anywhere.
No, I know,
not anytime soon.
I accept that my life isn't going to be forever, and I don't care about that. I believe that I'm going somewhere else. So don't tell me any different.
Well, the other thing too is that the people that I've really respected, and I think, you know, that I want to do as part of this series too, is that I always have been fascinated with history. I love history, and I love hearing about, you know, understanding how the pyramids were built, or all the amazing, you know, engineering and architecture that went into it. But also I like the stories of the little cities that had to grow up around there, of the people who did all of that work, or like
little ants.
Exactly. Well, and they all had lives. They all had stories. They were the ones doing the work. It wasn't the pharaoh. He didn't lift a finger, but you know, they would find, it was always
they made it work.
They made it work. They made it, actually, they pulled it all together. And so I'm interested in those people's stories.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, so that's it. Thank you for
You're welcome. It was
doing
fun.
this. Yes.
Yeah. And I talked too much as usual.
No.